in a moment. Let me see if she is ready to come on up. Let's see. Hello there. Oh, wait, no, we can't hear you. So I'm going to say jump out and then come back in, and we'll try that. All right. Greetings. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is having a happy second day of April. We are super excited to be here with you this evening. I know my eyes are going all over the place. It's just trying to make sure all of the live spaces are up and running. And then, like I said, Dina's dealing with some technical difficulties. So we are super excited to be here with you this evening. Let's see if we're doing any better. Hello?
Hello.
Okay, there we go.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. It's great to see you. How you holding up? What happened? I don't know where you went. Oh, we just having one of those nights, huh? Can you hear me? Okay, we can't hear you at all. Okay, you're on mute. Take yourself off mute. Let's see if that's doing it. Now try. Okay, now you're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
I didn't put it on mute. It just did it on its own. But
it
I
jumped to it.
think,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's all right. All right. Well, how are you doing? Let's start again.
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing well too. Thank you very much. Trying to get all of these spaces up and running. You
Okay.
know, Instagram has its separate kind of key that you have to go with.
Okay.
And so sometimes it works, but because I put these in the system days before, sometimes I have to take them out and then put them back in. But
Okay.
anyway, all right. So go on and cue the people up. They know what they need, but remind them for anybody that's new.
Yes. So you will need a notebook and a pen, a pencil, something to write with, because we always give gems and jewels, and we want you to catch every, excuse me, everything
Mm-hmm.
and not miss anything.
That's
Say.
it. And and we know that yes, you can always catch the replay if needed, and we definitely encourage you to because anytime you're thinking about something for an extended period of time, something else comes along and you don't get a chance to catch that one. So be sure to go back and catch the replay and also be sure to share the
Mhm.
replay with others as well. So, all right, I think we have almost everything up and running at this point in time. So, I think Instagram is now live, so we're good to go. Hey, hey, hey. All right, I think it's all good. So, we're going to keep it moving, and here we go. So, I was telling you that I got so much feedback from the first part
Mhm.
of navigating these challenging relationships and people were telling me they were like, "Oh my goodness, I had so much to say, but I couldn't get it in the chat. I couldn't get it fast enough, because the conversation is happening in real time." And
Right.
they were saying how they were sending the links out to other people and things like that and trying to get on. And I said, "Okay, don't worry." I said, "We'll do a part two because, just communication in itself is challenging in romantic relationships, friendships,
Mhm.
partnerships, business relationships, family relationships.
Yes.
Um, so, I mean, we could unpack communication over and over and over again and be helpful in that way. So, it'll definitely come up tonight. But when we were trying to figure out, okay, what other aspect, what other challenges do we want to make sure that we highlight this evening, you brought up this particular aspect.
Mhm.
And so go ahead and share it with them. And why did this one come to mind for you?
Well, I wanted to talk about the aspect of what did I say? Oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank?
Competitiveness.
Competitiveness and the power struggle
Yes.
between you and the other person. And I wanted to bring that up because, a lot of times within the family dynamic, that is a thing. And so I always hear My auntie told me that my mom is jealous of me. I literally just heard it
Mm,
5 minutes ago, like
mm,
hour ago or so.
mhm,
My
mhm,
mom is jealous of me because she was the only one that had X, Y, and Z, and now that I have exceeded where she is
mhm,
going, it's now become an issue.
mm,
So
mhm.
that's why I brought it up because I hear it all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
It's a
very.
big one. Yes, it is very common. And if you have heard, those of you who are listening, if you have heard or dealt with challenges in relationships, go on and drop a one in the chat room. Actually, you should probably say a two, right? Because it's usually between you and somebody.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and drop that one in the chat room if you have experienced a challenge in a relationship, someone being competitive with you. And obviously some people refer, there's unhealthy competitiveness and there's healthy competitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
The healthy competitiveness is more about the playfulness, is more about the we're pushing each
Yes.
other, right? Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead, expand
The
on that.
the positive challenge. So when I think of that, it's like I think of a romantic partnership where it's like
Mhm.
maybe you're trying to attain a financial goal, and it's
Mhm.
like okay, who's going to get to the goal, their goal faster, type of thing.
Right.
But you both have the same end goal, which is a positive end goal, as opposed to a negative where you're competing to be ahead. But you
Exactly.
both have the common, end goal, and you're
Mhm.
to that goal. So.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And so we understand the difference. We have to make sure that we take time to recognize the when competitiveness is healthy and
Mhm.
productive and leading us as a team to our overall goal and mission, right? Versus unhealthy competitiveness, which is about pulling the other person down,
Mhm.
belittling the other person, making that person feel bad. And it is addictive, I will say, the competitiveness within relationships. And I'll
Mhm.
always remember this one couple where they were asked, um, do you, the husband specifically, um, it was a matter of, do you want to be right or do you want peace?
Mhm.
And what you think he chose?
The husband,
Yeah, what y'all think he chose? Put it in the chat room. He was asked, "Do you want to be right or do you want peace?"
he was asked that, or he asked that.
He was asked that
Oh,
question.
because I heard it the other way. Um,
Okay.
Probably right.
Okay. What y'all think? Let me see what comes in the chat room. Dina
If he,
said
it
right.
depends on where he is in his healing journey. If he's within his healing journey, he will probably say peace. But if
Mhm.
fairly early in the journey, he probably.
Mhm. And y'all are right. He said right.
Mhm.
So, they got divorced.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
wasn't, he was not budging. He was caught in that relationship struggle, that competitiveness, and his spouse was interested in peace. And
Mhm.
so they had two different focus. They couldn't even partner on that.
Yeah. Mhm.
And unfortunately, that's an example that I've heard over and over and over again. If any of my clients are listening, they probably, some of them probably like, that's me, that's me, that's me.
Listen,
Right.
I have a similar situation where it's a couple and the male partner in the couple in the situation, he can't relinquish that need to feel right. He literally
Hmm.
says, I'm always right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm like, how? Like how are you always right? So that means you're not open to hearing her another perspective. You're not
That's
open
right.
to it from a different point of view.
That's right.
And I mean, they were supposed to come back, but they didn't. Because sometimes, us as therapists, especially you and I, we could be very, very real and challenge and like push you. So it's like sometimes people
Hmm.
are not prepared for the pushback
Yes.
and situation. But yeah, he literally said, "I'm always right, and
Hmm.
I know the way to go. And if she just follows what I say,
Mm.
then we will, you know, I know."
Hmm.
Like I know where to steer us right, but it was no she was not included in the plan at all.
Wow.
At all.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a problem again if you're looking for partnership. And this is why, again, if we go back to the first show about communication, and if you happen to miss the first show, just check out the replay on my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Walls 525. With communication, if you're not clear on the mission that you both have ascribed to, subscribed to, and ascribed to, that you've joined together in partnership to participate in life together to enhance each other, you have to be clear on what that is. All right. And even if maybe you weren't clear when you got together, get clear now. Even as you're listening to it, you can put us on pause and go have that conversation and come back and check the replay if you need to. Because you have to know what you're working towards. Because if not, you start to be competitive there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's like my life mission is ABC, and then your partner's person is saying that their life mission is XYZ. Well, y'all are not on one accord, you're not working on the same thing, and you're potentially not even working to help each other accomplish what the mission, the life mission and goals. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead, what's going through your mind?
No, I mean, we talk about being equally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
That's what came to mind. It's like, okay, you're not on the same path. You're not equally yoked. You don't have the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have the
Mm-hmm.
same vision, then you're naturally going to drift apart.
Yep. Yep. And that competitiveness kicks in. And I think it's so important when we think about right relationship challenges that we have to be aware that competitiveness is one that exists within relationships. All
Mm-hmm.
right. We hear it from the beginning for those people who have siblings, they have sibling rivalry, right?
Yeah.
For there's research that talks about the amount of conflict that occurs when you have two sex siblings back to back,
Mm-hmm.
the competitiveness that naturally happens. So they talk about how, as much as you can control it, there's all types of research as how that can happen. But right, it's less if there's a male, a female, than another male, or female, male, female, as opposed to male, male, female, and so forth. So competitiveness is a part of nature. We
Mm-hmm.
see it. As humans, we have the opportunity to redirect that energy and
Mm-hmm.
shift that energy so that we can make the competitiveness work for us.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not careful and you let it go unbridled, it is a bucking bronco that
Mm-hmm.
can be disrupted. I think about that. Oh, I forget. It's a insurance commercial where the guy, he calls himself like Havoc, Havoc, and I'm trying to remember if it's not Mischief or whatever. But he causes all types of accidents all
Okay.
over the place. Like there's one where he's riding down the street on his tricycle and people are staring and getting into accidents and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. But it's one that if competitiveness is not discussed, if it's not addressed, if it's not tamed, it
Mm-hmm.
can take over. And ways that competitiveness shows up, and here's a quick one, is tit for tat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had to put you on mute because there's a lot going on outside.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, the tit for tat energy. You saying that that is competitive?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. It's
Mhm.
for me, it's very annoying and it's unnecessary because it's like, okay, just because I say something, like say in an argument, right? You say you express, your issues. That person
Mhm.
then takes the time to express their issues. Well, if I'm
Mhm.
initiating the conversation of concern, this isn't your time to jump in and express your levels of concern because if you have a
Mhm.
level of concern, you initiate your own conversation of
Nah.
right. So that is an example of tit for tat where it's just like,
Mhm.
I've had to tell plenty of people like, I'm not coming at you. I'm just expressing how I feel. It's not
Mhm.
for you don't have to feel attacked. So I think that's the
Mhm.
thing, feel attacked. And so
Yeah.
with competition, it's like, okay, maybe they feel inadvertently attacked because you
Mhm.
better, but would it be an attack or would it be triggered?
Okay. Well, and this is where understanding your relationship. So we encourage you
Mhm.
to understand your relationship with competition.
Right.
Okay. Because that will determine how you tend to respond to
Mhm.
it. Right. So for some people like myself, I played sports. I played a lot of different sports. So there's always competition against another, but that also meant I was on a team. And
Mhm.
I wasn't competing against my team, I was working with my team
Mhm.
for an end goal.
Mhm.
Now, you have some people who are on teams who are competing against their teammates for stats, for recognition, for MVP, for playing time. There's some coaches who taunt and foster competition within the team, so you have those types of things. Same things within households, right?
Mhm.
Between siblings, you have some people that fan the flame of competition, and you have to look at that. So you have to look at your relationship with competition. Some people are competition adverse.
Mhm.
So as soon as they feel as though competition is coming in, they become avoidant to it. And this is important because when we're looking at our conflict resolution styles, competitiveness is one of them.
Mhm.
And so you'll have some people who are all in for the conflict resolution, again, coming from a I'm going to win this argument.
Mhm.
This is now has become a debate instead of a discussion. And
Mhm.
that shifts the whole energy and the dynamic of the relationship. Go ahead, what's going through your mind?
No, I don't like competition. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
to debate. I don't like to argue. Um and it may be the environment that I grew up in, I'm not sure, but it was all
Mhm.
heavily combative and, just comparing and all of that. Even as an adult, that I experienced some of that, from my mom.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that energy, I just don't like it. It just gives me like it makes my stomach turn and everything. Now, will I argue a point? Yes. Will I argue
Mhm.
for what's right? Yes. But
Mhm.
that competitive, I didn't do sports. I danced. So
Mhm.
everything was like, oh, like light in the air,
Mhm.
kumbaya, like went to overnight camp, sat by the campfire. So that's
Right.
energy. I don't like that competitive energy at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Hmm.
so it becomes important for you to assess your relationship with competition, right? Be clear on what you like about it, what you don't like about it, how it shows up for you, how you respond to it when it does show up. And then, as you're in relationships, discussing it.
Hmm.
I wrote an article years ago that said, jealousy is misdirected inspiration,
Hmm.
because a lot of times competitiveness will show up because someone is jealous. And
Okay.
it is the attempt to, as you talked about, comparison
Hmm.
and the attempt to knock someone down.
Right. I think that's the part that I don't like, and I don't like the fight of it. I don't
Hmm.
hustle with someone for something that I want or my goal. That's probably why I'm not into sports now
Hmm.
because it's just like, why are you doing all of this? Like, you
Hmm.
hurting yourself potentially to
Hmm.
win. And I'm like, I don't want to have to hurt myself or hurt someone else
Right.
to attain a goal.
Right.
But it's the fight,
Yeah.
and I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I mentioned, the tit for tat piece comes up, it becomes a slippery slope because within relationships, it becomes a matter of keeping score,
Hmm.
right? So in a game, it's March Madness, we have a scoreboard, a
Yeah.
legit scoreboard where we all follow along. We know who's winning, we know who's up, we know how many points the shot is worth, right? So we know. But in a relationship, and there's rules.
Hmm.
There's fouls, not that they're always called, or sometimes, there's out of bounds, right? There's a structure that
Hmm.
makes it uh, um, manageable. All
Hmm.
right. However, in a relationship, the rules are not as clear cut,
Hmm.
and there can be disadvantages, and there's not a set time of play, so to speak. So it leaves you too wide open to being attacked and pulled into an engagement or an entanglement that is not productive to the health of the overall relationship.
Mm,
And there's no win. There's no end game. At least with a basketball game, a baseball game, no matter how long they go, no matter how many overtimes they go, eventually it's going to come to an end. When
mm,
the unhealthy competitiveness shows up within a relationship, the end is usually the end of the relationship,
mm, mhm.
if not taken advantage of, meaning if not handled, if the competitiveness isn't handled. Go ahead,
Mm.
what's going through your mind?
I'm just thinking, what if the people don't know when to end it, and it keeps looping and looping and looping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Arguments keep
Mm-hmm.
going and going. You're doing a tit for
And
tat,
intensifying.
right? It's over and over and over.
Yep.
When do you when do you stop it? Like when, like
Mm-hmm.
who stops it? When do you stop it? What are signs that you should stop it?
Mm-hmm. I would say in the relationship work that I've done with people, when it has intensified and looped,
Mhm.
the arguments increase the frequency
Mhm.
and the intensity
Yes.
of the arguments increase.
Mhm.
The healthy communication decreases, the interactions decrease
Mhm.
because now people don't like spending time with each other because they know automatically it's going to trip into an argument. I had a client, God knows, 20 some years ago, and I used to do in home therapy.
Mhm.
And every time, right before they popped off in an argument, their toddler would go over to the piano and start banging on the keys
Mm.
every single
Almost like
time.
an activator.
Wait, it was like, and I noticed it, and I was like, what in the world is going on? I said, right after the child plays those horrible notes, they pop off into an argument.
Mhm.
So finally, I brought it, I talked about it in supervision and I brought it to the couple's attention. And at first, they didn't peep it.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, he noticed it. And I was like, I just wondered, did that little body feel their energy
Mhm.
becoming uncomfortable and conflictual? And that was literally that child's way of
Releasing.
getting it out. Yep, getting it out of his system, her system. Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, they had a very competitive, professionally competitive, socially competitive relationship with each other. And sometimes people just don't take the time to recognize that's what it is.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Very unhealthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. A
It's
hundred
not
percent.
about that at all. Like.
Yeah. So when you said, so what happens? So as people are listening, you start to think about people who you no longer want to interact with and get clear as to why don't you want to
Mhm.
interact with those people. As mentioned, it becomes a matter of moments. It gets to the point where you're lucky if it's even minutes
Mhm.
before an argument pops off
Yeah.
between you and the other person. Um, Other things, when you are feeling someone shares their good news or their good fortune with you and you find yourself wanting to up them
Mm.
instead of just celebrating their success. Now you're busy trying to up their success,
Mhm.
or you're trying to downplay their success. And that's how competitiveness shows up. And I mentioned as far as keeping the score, and that's where that tit for tat, well, I did this, well, you did that, well,
Mhm.
you did that, well, I did this. And now you're building platforms for yourself as opposed to finding a way to team with yourself. What's going through your mind? Team with your partner, excuse me.
No, just thinking about like the ways to communicate so that, because I'm thinking about, okay, well, how can you do that without it sounding like a tit for tat, right? And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's the conversation of concern and
Mm-hmm.
expressing that. And it's also about your partner being receptive and open to
Mm-hmm.
saying so that you don't have to keep repeating yourself over and over. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe where the tit for tat part comes in sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking from a person that's just like, I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to communicate. You're not really picking up what I'm saying versus
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's actually being like a tit for tatter. Like, you didn't
Mm-hmm.
wash the dishes last night, so I'm not cooking.
Taking out the trash.
Right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not that,
Mm-hmm.
but more so like, well, these are my concerns, X, Y, and Z. And then the other person's like, well, I'm trying, like, they're feeling like it's tit for tat, but it is more
Mm.
just trying to express it. So,
Right.
how for the people that are really genuinely trying to express
Mm-hmm.
points or their areas and not be competitive, but
Mm-hmm.
suggestions for them to, like, I don't know, say it in a softer manner, or is it a
Mm-hmm.
soft way?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is to address it, right? Do you ask the person, do you feel as though like I'm competing with you or putting you down? Because that person is responding in that energy. They're
Right.
responding in that way. So
Mhm.
let's clarify that, right? Do you think I'm being slick? Do you think I'm trying to trick you
Mhm.
into saying or doing something, which then leads to trust discussions around do you trust what I'm saying? Do you trust me?
Mhm.
Feelings of insecurity, right? All of this starts to come up, which are conversations that we need to have anyway with
Right.
our partners,
Mhm.
especially people who we're considering our partners, right? And be clear, I'm saying friendships, we're talking romantic relationships, we're talking family relationships, and even business.
Mhm.
One of the things as leadership coaches, when we go into systems, is one of the things that causes teams not to gel is lack of trust.
Mhm.
And sometimes it is due to competitiveness
Mhm.
because their teammates are so busy trying to look better than someone else on the team. They're trying to get their boss or their manager's attention. They're trying to be the standout at all by any means necessary. Meaning, if you climb on people, if you knock people down, if you sabotage people. See, that's
Hey.
the whole thing. Yep. Just go ahead. Go ahead.
As a cough is coming up.
Uh huh. Okay, go ahead. So yeah, so we have to make sure that when people teammates that they're not go ahead backstabbing.
You right back in it. Yeah, the backstabbing energy within work is very, it's so cutthroat
Mhm.
because it's dealing with money, and we know how money can manipulate people and
Mhm.
move people, and so
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't even have words for it because it can cause for your work environment to be very toxic.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think we have seen situations and different systems that you and I have worked in where certain parts of the team will work together,
Mhm.
and then you have other parts that are
Yep.
out of their own, and it's like, okay, well, how can we merge the two?
Yes.
But that competitiveness in the workplace is a thing.
Real. Yeah.
Yeah, very real.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and this is why each person, it's so important that you understand your relationship with competitiveness because it will show up in different areas of your life. Sometimes people say, well, I'm not competitive at work, but I'm competitive at home. Mm, I don't know
Right,
if that's true. If I talk with some of your colleagues,
right,
would they say the same thing?
right. Because everything that goes on at home literally
Come
carries
on.
into
Yeah.
other parts of your life,
Right.
your base.
Right.
So come on.
Exactly. It's a part of who you are, and then you get in relationships with people who remind you of other people.
Yeah.
And it automatically triggers, and next thing you know, I mean, as far as playfulness is concerned, when I there's certain people and certain energies when I am in meetings that it's like I pick up that vibe from that person, and don't let it be an in-person meeting. I'm like, I can't sit next to you because I'm a play. I know I'm a play. I already know me. And so I'll turn to the person and I'll be like, I can't sit next to you and I can't sit across from you. Because if I sit next to you, I'm gonna start cutting up. And if I sit across from you, you're gonna be looking at me and I'm gonna be looking at you, and the two of us are gonna be laughing and we're gonna get in trouble.
Mhm.
Right. But that's because I know my energy and I know that energy who I vibe
Mhm.
off of like
Mhm.
that. It's
Mhm.
the same thing competitiveness wise. You have to know, what does competitiveness feel like inside of you and when it starts to be triggered. I remember there was someone who said to me very early on into Emin and my marriage,
Mhm.
and he said, "Do not fall into the trap of tit for tat." And I'm like, I don't fall into no tit for tat traps. You crazy. I swear I went home that day
Until
and tit for tat was right there. And he said
it's the
something.
tit for tat that, oh, you don't know who I am.
Exactly. That's right. Let me come and tap to tap tap
Like,
tap
right.
tap
Let me tap on the
tappity tap.
head.
Right. Exactly. And it's seductive. It pulls you, it lures you in, and it calls for self-control, it calls for self-awareness, it calls for resistance, it calls for all of those things, and it calls for you to move past the initial so that you can have the deeper level conversation.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that I will say Edmund said to me very early on was that he wanted to make sure that competitiveness did not exist in our relationship because he had seen how detrimental it
Mhm.
could be in relationship. So it was something that we kept an active, and still do,
Mhm.
keep an active eye on to make sure it doesn't slip in. And I'm not saying, say it again.
That would be your check-ins.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And sometimes it does show up, and I had to like, you being competitive with me, and he'd be like, no, and I said, okay, then why did you respond this way? And then he'll be like, oh, I was just playing. Okay, but ain't nobody laughing, so
It's not funny.
it's not funny. And vice versa, right? And I've had to check myself as well, and he's had to check me too, because again, the ultimate goal is for us to be in a positive and healthy relationship with each other.
Yeah. Mhm.
What's going through your mind?
No, I'm thinking about I noticed that I say no a lot too. I
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess that's the long way from
Yeah. We moving past I don't know to
oh Lord, I don't know. That's just removed from my whole vocabulary. The I, the don't, and the no.
that's
Okay.
right. That's right.
Go on. For those who know,
I
y'all
got
know.
to say, for anybody who works with me, y'all already know. I had a
And me.
client today
Yeah.
say, I don't use that phrase anymore.
Right.
Look.
Who
You
Kara?
see it? Uh-huh, you see it?
No, I don't see it.
So,
He said, "Oh, okay.
and
Exactly
then she said that. Then she said this.
scares me, guys. They be all tripped up."
That's right. It is not allowed. Not
Yeah.
allowed.
Dang, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh my gosh, what was I going to say? I forgot. It lost.
That's
I'm.
all right. It'll come back when it's supposed to. So yeah, so again, just right, knowing who you are, knowing what competitiveness means to you, and taking the time to navigate it, knowing that you don't want it to be a detriment to
Mhm.
your relationship. And this is why we talk about it. And if you feel like someone's being competitive with you, ask them, right?
Mm,
And there's different slick ways in which people say it. I've told this story before, how one time I was doing a presentation, and it was way back here. I'm gonna make you laugh. It was way back when PowerPoint first came out. And so I had just learned how to do PowerPoint.
mhm,
And it wasn't something that was very popular. So I had all the bells and whistles in my presentation. And I was super excited to share and hoping that it would go well and
mhm,
right. Um, and so it did. And then after the presentation, two people said to me, "Why did you make us look bad?"
mm,
And I took a breath and looked at the both of them and just said, why didn't you make yourself look better? Right. So I wasn't in competition with
Right.
them. And, I could have gone on. I wasn't trying to be rude or flip in that moment. It was with all sincerity. Like, I legit just showed up being my best self.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about them when I created that
Yeah,
presentation. Would you say?
absolutely not.
Right, not at all. And so I wasn't thinking about it when I was giving my presentation.
Right.
The only way in which I thought about them was, is this going to make sense to everyone who I'm presenting it to?
Right.
All right. So, but they tried to come at me with competitive energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Damn.
Right, and knock me down. And that is the competitive energy, right?
Mm,
So that
they can
you
come
don't
up.
they can come up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And keep you from coming up. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why you have to be careful who you're in partnership with,
Yeah.
who you're in a relationship with. Because my thing is, if I step on you, it's only because you've given me your shoulders to step on to lift me higher. And trust and believe, when I get to that next level, I'm turning around to grab you in
Mm.
order to pull you up. And we are just going to make a human ladder and keep going all the way up. So that's what we're going to. You knew it was coming. The setup was right there. Leslie, she knew it was coming.
I
We
really,
all knew. Look.
I was like, call. But one of the things that I've experienced is people being in competition with me and I have no clue. And it's
Okay.
so frustrating because, like you, it's
Mm-hmm.
what? Like, I didn't even know, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
not, I've never experienced someone come up to me and say that example, like, why did you make me feel bad? It's
Mm-hmm.
just when I sit back and I think about people's behaviors towards me or how they interact with me sometimes, I would be like, what was that? Like, and it will come
Mm-hmm.
off as like them sabotaging my things, right? Or
Yep.
my events or something,
Yep.
or they come
Yep.
in and they may make it about them. I get
Mm-hmm.
that a lot, right? So if it's
Mm-hmm.
something specifically for me or I
Mm-hmm.
created or something, people will steal my ideas,
Mm-hmm.
um, recreate it and try to implement it, for themselves. It never really
Mm-hmm.
works, but I've heard, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it and people have come back to me and told me that.
Yeah.
Or I will have events or something. Sorry. And people will come in and they will try to steal the show.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when you're in the moment, you're not thinking about somebody selling the show. You're on a
In
high
the
from
moment.
the moment, but
Right.
then settle down, and then you get the accounts from other people who are viewing
Mm-hmm.
it from an outside perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that was that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
wasn't it. And it's so disappointing
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you want to be genuine, just as genuine as you are to them. But when
Yeah.
you experience it, it's so sad and disappointing.
Yeah.
So that's what I always experience that part because I'm not a fighter. I
Right.
if I for safety and all of that,
Of course.
but I'm not competitive in that way. I want everyone to win. I'm
Mm-hmm.
always going to be the number one supporter, always showing up, going above
Mm-hmm.
and beyond. I have to pull myself back a lot of times. So it's disappointing, to
Yeah.
be in competition with people and you're not in competition with them. And you're like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? I just want
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z or good energy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
to have that slither of like competitiveness or sabotage energy, it's so disheartening.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, as you talked about, having an outside um reference point, right? An outside resource to turn to that's unbiased and so forth becomes very important, because many times, if competitiveness is not on your radar,
Right,
right? Jealousy, envy, those things aren't on your radar. You're not going to recognize them when they show up.
right.
And it takes someone like a therapist or an impartial, reviewer, friend, or so forth, to be able to say, have you considered
Yeah.
this?
I remember one time you asked me, you said, how does envy show itself in your life.
Yep.
And I was like, dang, like every time certain signs are just like, don't like, all right, conversation over. You just took me out for the whole entire day.
Yeah.
But you say that it was like, because we have done so much work, well, I have done so much work and you have helped me to
Hmm.
get to where I am. I was immediately able to pinpoint, go right to the root, and was able to parallel. Is that a word?
We done made it up. Look, you done made it up. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Compare the two situations and see that it was very similar to the root of how
Hmm.
envy showed up for me. And then
Hmm.
I was able to make, the appropriate cuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to do the work to be able
Yeah.
to recognize and see when somebody is competing with you, when it's healthy competition versus unhealthy
Yep.
and toxic,
Yep.
not
Yep.
toxic. So,
And so, as we're talking about this idea of competitiveness, you start to see the cousins and the siblings of
yeah,
it,
mhm.
right? So, jealousy,
Envy.
envy,
Mhm.
right? You got to look at the twins and see how they have shown up in your life and where they're coming from. And sometimes people are so disheartened at where the envy and the jealousy is coming from. And this
Mhm.
is why I say jealousy is misdirected inspiration,
Mhm.
because there is something about the other person
Mhm.
that attracts us, that we like. If
Mhm.
it's the way that they dress, their style, their hair, the way that they sing, the way that they dance, the way that they interact, the way public speaking, the way, right? There's something that it's like, oh, I like that. And instead of recognizing that you can have that too, they would rather make you feel self conscious about it, knock you down so that you're not utilizing it and
Mhm.
they're not utilizing it either, right?
Mhm.
And instead, it would make more sense to me is if you say, you know what, how do you do that?
Collaborate.
Like, and hence, collaboration is the highest form within relationships. It is the most challenging to get to. And when it comes to conflict resolution, it is also the most challenging because it takes the most amount of time. It takes a lot of communication and understanding and patience and tolerance, all of that. A lot of times people will move with avoidance. They will move with competition. They will move with compromising
Mhm.
and all of that, as opposed to actually working towards collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, to the point, how does competitiveness show up in your life? How has it shown up? Be it with siblings, be
Mhm.
it with neighbors, with other family members, and age has nothing to do with it
Oh,
because, right, we have seen mothers be competitive with daughters
great.
and grandmothers competitive with, yes, we've seen all types of things. It shows up in the workplace, and it doesn't even have anything to do with job title, because you be thinking that this person in this role would not even be jealous of this person in this role, but it shows up there as well. And even within yourself, has there ever been a time that you have experienced jealousy towards someone? So this way you know what it feels like.
Mhm.
It may not have stayed in the jealousy space, but it might have started to come up and you realize, oh, I'm jealous. And that's why I say, right, from an alchemist standpoint,
Mhm.
we take that energy and we shift it from jealousy into inspiration.
Mhm.
And we say, you know what, I'm inspired by your such and such. How do you do that?
Mhm. Mhm. For me, if I'm jealous, I'll say, "Oh, I'm jealous," like that.
Right. Right.
And most of the time, like it will be like I have the kids and they're fairly like young, so I can't
Mhm.
move around as freely. And I think me and Tiara, we were just talking about that, how she's able to travel and do
Mm.
all of the things. And I didn't tell her because this is just an example,
Right.
but I would be jealous. Like, dang, I want
Yeah.
to be able to get up and move. And I did say to her, I'm like, listen, I just need Camille to be a couple more years older.
Yes.
The Chris be like 17, 18. I can't do no world tour, but I could do a weekend, 4 days
Yes.
somewhere. So the freedom to move and travel, but I don't
Yeah,
take it, I don't internalize that as like hate. I'm not hating on her for her
that's
ability.
right.
It's like I'm encouraging, like, no, you need to be doing it now
Yes,
before you have children.
yes,
You have children,
that's
you won't
right.
as freely. So for me, I can admit when I'm jealous about certain things, but it's not that in that hate or that internal, which
Hmm.
she says coming. I don't internalize it as a hate. It's
Yeah,
just nothing but love and good energy. It's like,
yeah,
please travel and see the world.
yeah.
For me, bring me something back.
Come on. Come on. Sierra, you can write this one down. One of my lines is take advantage of your advantages,
Hmm.
right? So I remember when I remember I I traveled a lot more than what I do now due to life circumstances. And I remember somebody asked me when I was younger, they were like, why are you always traveling? Like you're everywhere. In my 20s, I mean, them people at the airport knew me. So it was just, I loved it. Oh, look, she said, ooh, that's going in my notes now.
For sure.
Yeah. But I did, and I remember the person was like, I don't understand why you travel so much. I don't understand why you don't spend more time at home with your parents and this and that and everything else. And I was just like, because they're fine and I can. And this is the time. Now, who knew 20 years later that I would be the primary caretaker for
Mhm.
them, that I wouldn't be able to move as freely as I once did. And
Mhm.
thank goodness I took advantage of my advantages at that point in time. And so we have to make sure that we do. So, one of the things is we look at what advantages do we
Yeah,
have.
thinking that.
Go ahead. I want to get you while you're not coughing. Go ahead.
Because about to
Yes.
Tierra, and for the record, y'all, Tierra got me sick.
Uh-uh.
Yes, she's gonna be hollering on the other comments. Her and her coworkers got me
Yes.
sick.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so that's where it came from. And
Uh-huh.
I'm counting down in my head because she about to be in this comment real
Go
soon. But I was just thinking to myself, what are my advantages? Although I'm not able to travel, I have the flexibility of time. So I can, move. I'm able to get my children, pick them up
Mhm.
and drop them off to school.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I didn't have that before,
Yeah.
and now I do. So that is one of my major advantages that I take advantage of. So
Yeah.
earlier today, I had a client that canceled. I did all tax stuff, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, this feels good because if I was at a
Yeah.
job at a 9 to 5, I would not be able to do these things. I
Yeah.
would be like confined to a desk
Yeah.
or possibly home visits or something where
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the time.
Yeah.
So that is one of
Yeah.
my time.
And I
And so,
Yeah. And so, as I'm thinking about tonight's topic of challenges within relationships and advantages, we have this advantage of the internet,
yeah,
where we can type in how to navigate competitiveness within relationships.
for sure.
And Google and all other search engines,
Ooh,
including Chat GPT,
yes.
will spit out all types of recommendations.
Not her
Um,
you ChatGPT. That just clicked in my head.
I
Oh Lord. Have we talked to them about you with ChatGPT? I know it's a
think
sidebar.
so. Yeah, I
You just
think we did a while back.
and
I,
so freely. This was
look,
not the case.
I still have my feelings about it.
But I'm just saying, we
What
just
we'll discuss. I'm just
it's
saying you can use it's a tool that is an advantage that you can utilize. As you mentioned, YouTube, there's all types. I started to play a video tonight, but I opted not to. But there's all types of videos that are out there. TikTok, for as long as
yeah,
we have access to it. There's all types of information out there on how to navigate these challenges within relationships, competitiveness, communication difficulties. We are in an information society. The information is there. If you want to read about it, there's books galore. If you want to listen, there's podcasts
Yes.
galore, right? If you want to watch, there's content to watch. Like there is no shortage of information on how to navigate competitiveness,
Mm-hmm.
communication thing. Now here's the thing, it takes practice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the reality. We can watch all of this stuff, we can read all of this stuff, but if we do not put it into practice, then we are not going to know how to successfully navigate these spaces. And you can start with people who you feel the safest with, such as your friends, such as your siblings. It all depends on your relationship dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you gradually increase, right, the challenge, the difficulty. So there's things that I would say to my friends first and we work through it, all right? And we role play. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to go say it to, let's say, my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, there it is. And then I may go say it to somebody else, but I build that muscle
Mm-hmm.
up so that I'm able to ask, like you said, and somebody says, "Oh, you jealous?" And then, and be able to be like, "Are you jealous?" Now there ain't no reason to be jealous.
Yeah.
Are
Mm-hmm.
you competing with me? And to be able to ask those questions. I mean, I'll be in the store and somebody will say something. I'll be like, "Are you trying to disrespect me?" Like, I don't want to assume that
Mm-hmm.
you are, because that just may be the way that you talk, and it's just different than the way that I prefer somebody talk to me.
Right.
So let me clarify.
Let me acknowledge.
Let me acknowledge that this is what your tone is coming in, your behavior is triggering inside of me. But just because it is doesn't mean I'm right. So
Right.
let me clarify. Now it's up to you to tell the truth.
Right.
And sometimes I've had people go, "Oh no, I didn't mean that. I apologize." And it's like, "Oh, okay." And it's not a, "Oh, okay, you better not have."
Okay.
Right, right. It's not that one. "Oh, all right." Right. It's not that one.
I'm like, oh, okay, like that. But see her okay. It's like, oh, okay. Nah, like, nah, man. I'm working. I'm a work in progress, y'all. We gonna acknowledge it, and we gonna give a little spice, little red. Sorry.
And we all are in that process. And like I said, as far as competitive is concerned, Edmund laughs at me. March Madness is on, the game comes on, I'm in the game immediately. I went to go. My mom is in rehab, and so I was watching the game with her, and she's like, "Do you get this loud at home?" She's like, she's like, "Are the neighbors complaining about you?" And I was like, "No, they not complaining. I'm good." So, but but it's in me,
Mhm,
and I know it's in me. So, but yeah, so it's the same thing with competitiveness, right? I know it's in me. I know it can be triggered. I know what my relationship was like with my brothers,
mhm,
and competitiveness, and so it's easy for me to slide right
mhm,
into it. So I have to watch it. All
mhm,
right. And this is where, you got to stay woke. So you have to stay aware of where your challenges are, where your trips and slips can
mhm.
be. Go
Yeah.
ahead. What were you gonna say?
One of the things that I wanted to say was, with so much information, you
Mhm.
have to take in what resonates with you. Yes, you can read
Mhm.
the books, watch all the videos, the TikTok videos, and everything, but only take in what resonates for you, because everything
Yeah.
is not going to apply to you. So
Yeah.
what's chew the meat and spit out the bones,
Yep.
basically. And just take in whatever is meant for you. So
Mhm.
that's what I
Mhm.
do.
Very good point. Thank you for adding that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you'll find some people who you like the way that they
yeah.
explain
Just
things,
mm,
right? Their style, that resonates with
like
you, to your
us.
point. 100%. This is why we need you to like,
Right.
subscribe, and hit the replay. If you have not clicked
Yeah.
subscribe to Ask Dr. Walls 525 on YouTube, please do so. All right, let's take a moment. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
But yeah, once you find, the person that you resonate with or the style, you just, like Dr. Wall said, you start implementing it, and then you start to see the difference. If
Yep.
you don't see a shift, it may be you, it may be the other
Mhm.
person. You may have to try a different technique.
Yeah.
Um, because to what was
I'll tell the story in a moment.
okay.
Go ahead.
A lot of times when you're trying out new techniques, the people that you're trying it on, they
Yeah,
may not be receptive to it.
that's
And so
right.
I said it may be the other person because they may not be at the same point of where you are, where
Good
they
point.
don't want to stop competing or they don't think that what they're doing is wrong. In
Yep.
particular relationships, you can be patient with them or it will
Mm-hmm.
just drift apart. So, or
Mm-hmm.
you could just, end it, whatever, depending on the severity of the relationship. But
Yeah.
point is to try
Yep.
and communicate with that person, let them know, like, hey, this is what I'm noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try these things. Are you open to it? And then go from
Mm-hmm.
there. So,
Mm-hmm. Very, very, very
part
good
one,
points.
communication.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Ties into part one, which
Oh,
communication.
yes, 100%. 100%. I'm gonna say what she said. Yes. That's yeah, no, it is. It's everything that you just said is very important. And that again, people take that time to clarify what works for you and practicing for you and knowing that people may not be used to you responding that way and reacting that way. So it's going to take some time. It's not a one and done. It's not a I tried it and it didn't work, right? We have to get people acclimated to this new way of behaving and relating. The other thing is important that these types of conversations, when there's challenges in relationships, the time to have the conversations is when people are calm,
Yes.
not when there's a rah rah moment.
Hmm.
Because when there's a rah rah moment, people are not listening and it's not going in. So, the infamous, do you understand the words that are coming out my mouth? No, is the answer. I don't. Because at this point, my stress level, my fight or flight or freeze, which comes from my old brain, is turned up. And my critical thinking, my analytical thinking, and my executive functioning, which is in my new brain, is turned down. All
Hmm.
right. And so the old brain has to get turned down like volume in order for this part to come back online and be turned up. This is why the deep breathing is important. This is why the journaling is important. This is why talking to the wise person is important, because you got to get this back online so that you can have these types of conversations.
Hmm.
So make sure that you are doing that. All right. We are getting ready to hit the top of the hour. You have space for more clients, more coaching. And if
Yeah.
so, how do people get a hold of you? And then you have some books, and how do people get a hold of those?
Yes. So I do have some openings for individual therapy and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to my Instagram, Deana Deana Davis _LSW, I believe it's the fifth link in my bio to
Mm-hmm.
schedule a consultation, a free phone consultation. But you can also go to www.deanaldavis.com and you can book an individual session through there or a
Mm-hmm.
consultation through the website as well.
Okay.
Books. So I have a 90 Days Self Love Planner that is available on Amazon and through my website for digital download. Both of those
Mm-hmm.
are linked in my social media handles, which is Instagram, Deana Davis _LSW, and it's the same for TikTok. So it's the same link tree,
Yeah.
link. So it's the fifth link, no, the first and second link in my bio for those. I
Okay.
also have a self love journal, which will
Mm-hmm.
take you through 30 days of self love activities in the journey
Mm-hmm.
of loving yourself and just getting the, things jump started. And then
Yeah.
my last book is an ebook, which is How to Heal from a Heartbreak, which is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily about relationships, but any type of heartbreak. And it's a very quick journal just to keep you grounded. Yeah, so those are my babies.
Very good. Very good. I would say the easiest thing to do for me is go to my website, askdrwalls.com, AskDrwalls.com, where you will see my books, The Greatest Soul Journey, Live by the Spirit, And volume one, I was looking at volume two the other day, so one day it will emerge.
Mm.
And then there are the Adventures of Froggy T and Bunny, a hip hop tale. There's the reunion, Feeling Feelings, Bunny Gets Bullied, and Froggy Foo and Mungu. Somebody said to me, Doc, I didn't know you had a whole library over there.
Yeah.
Yes, and the other one will be coming out in a couple of weeks. Um, so I'm excited about that. I also have a lot of shows popping off. So again, if you have not subscribed to Ask Dr. Walls 525 on YouTube, please do so. Tomorrow is Wealth Wednesday with Brian Brogan, and we are going to be talking about doing some spring financial spring cleaning, seeing how it is the beginning of April, it is tax season, it is springtime. This is a good time to get your finances in order. The months are rolling by. It's the beginning of the second quarter of the fiscal year. So, this is the time. So, join us tomorrow at noon. And then a show that I started last year, but I popped it off on YouTube, excuse me, on TikTok, but I'm bringing it over here to YouTube tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Mm.
is Lyrical Epiphanies.
Mm.
And so, Lyrical Epiphanies, we're going to be looking, me and Stacy Aman Yadel.
Mm.
She is a music therapist, and her book was actually number one. She was on my Planner's Knowledge podcast, and then she
Okay.
released her book a couple weeks ago, and it was number one on Amazon. So, super proud of her. She's going to join me tomorrow, and we have the song that set off the whole Lyrical Epiphanies idea, and we're going to break it down. So, for my old school who remember Atlantic Star,
Mm.
if your heart isn't in it, why didn't you tell me so? We're going to break that song down and look at its pieces. So I'm super, super, super excited about that. I've been waiting for her schedule to get free for us to be able to pop that one off.
Okay.
So tomorrow will be the first show. That'll be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Thursday, it is Sisters for Harmony vodcast at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will have Dr. Raman Tall, who does the medical tourism, where she looks at if you want to get medical procedures done overseas,
Mm.
the different ways and what you need to look out for, because we know a lot of people go overseas to have certain procedures and they come back with their summer bodies.
Mm.
um, so so we're going to talk about that, but then we'll also be joined by Sana Crespina Flores, and she is an artist, an author, an advocate. She's done a lot of work. I had her on the show years ago, back when we used to do Blog Talk Radio,
Mm.
and the Do Remember Me project, where she worked with boys out of North Philadelphia, and then did video calls, Skype calls. So she was doing this way before the pandemic,
Mm.
and did a documentary with Skype calls with boys who were from Africa,
Okay.
and to help dispel myths
Mm.
between Africa and the US. And she did multiple countries throughout Africa as well as France.
Mm.
And since then, she's written a book, and she's done so much fabulous work and advocacy. So I'm super excited to have her on the show on Thursday. So we have a lot popping off.
Mm.
So stay abreast, and there may be one or two other things coming. You shall see. Mhm. Always in the lab. Y'all know me, y'all know. So, all right. Anything else that we need to say?
Nope. Mm-mm.
All right. So, on that note, everybody, thank you for joining us. God bless. And as always, continue to tap into your greatest.
Blueprint.
All right. We'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.